And we are live. Welcome back to the Mecca of Banter podcast. I am this week's host, Henry Wind. And let's all just say it together, fellas. It's a great week to be a Manchester United fan. Glory, glory, Man United, Carabao Cup winners. It's a great day to be here. You can find me on Twitter at Henry Wind. We have a great episode for tonight, but before we dive into the agenda, let's check in with the fellas. Going over to Connor Sindobri. I'm going to start with you first, man. How are you feeling this week?
I've never been better, to be honest with you. The 6-year drought of being trophyless is finally over. So I'm going to save it to dive in a little bit because I have so much to say today. Not that I don't every single week, but I'm extremely happy to be here with all you guys today. Extremely happy to talk some footy.
From one man who's ended a 6-year drought to another man that's never tasted a trophy. Andy Hoover, how are you feeling?
Yes, what an intro. I mean, I'm honored to be here, doing better than most of the rest of the table. So
Fair.
that's exciting. That's exciting, fair. Right? You take your wins when you get them, pal, and they don't come to Chelsea often. So
the most level-headed fan in our chat, Andy Hoover. He knows when he's high. He knows when he's low. I gotta love it. Lucas Winkleman, check in today. How are you feeling? Welcome back to the pod this week.
What's up, fellas? It's good to be here. I missed last week, and the entire week I was just itching to get back on here and talk about Arsenal. And it's a great week to do that, getting 3 more points on Saturday. So we're here at LCW21 on Twitter, by the way. Sorry.
Welcome back. James Wind, how are you feeling, man? Becoming a mainstay on the podcast. I gotta love it. How are you feeling?
Yeah, super happy to be here. Super not happy to talk about Chelsea.
You know, I will say for our listeners that obviously aren't in our group chat, it is a funny thing over the last couple of weeks. What started a couple of weeks ago of every Chelsea fan wanting to be on the podcast and talking, now Chelsea fans are just trying to draw straws of who is going to be the ceremonial person that talks about Chelsea on the podcast. And
the
Jake
whipping
Wine,
post.
you drew the short end of the stick this week. Thanks for being here. And Mecca fans, we have a very special guest on today's pod. We have the pride and joy of Chesterfield, Missouri. We have the Marquette High School legend and the Quincy University absolute alumni legend, Scott Persha. How are you doing?
Hey, it's long overdue. It's unreal to be here. It's just been a long time coming. So happy to be a part of it. And tell you what, north side of London is
still red.
I'll plead the fifth on that one. So
pink.
I can't imagine that it's anything less than an absolute dream to be here for you, Scott Persha. So we're damn glad to have you. We have a great episode for everyone listening today. We have, as always, our weekly recap coming, as well as a new segment that we'll be introducing, which is our weekly flowers and weekly showers. We'll also be looking at the St. Louis City SC game as we played our very first game in the MLS this week. And finally, we have our look ahead to the upcoming week's games. So we're going to start off hot this week with Liverpool. Now, Ryan Butchart is not here tonight to defend himself. And
shocking.
Contrary
coaching duties.
Yeah, he mentioned that he had coaching duties on this podcast, but after the last 2 performances, which was a 5-2 loss to Real Madrid and a 0-0 tie to Crystal Palace this week, I can't imagine he'd want to show his face around this neck of the woods. So, fellas, I know we watched the Champions League games. I know we watched the weekend tie. What's going on with Liverpool? Who wants to take this one?
Dude, Butch said they came in and beat Newcastle all hot and drawn, and then just left. They beat Newcastle and then just left. I don't know. The Liverpool, the Real Madrid one, I said it last week. I was like, if it was any of that team that showed up in the second half against Newcastle, they were going for blood. And that was exactly what happened. Like, I mean, the defending was miserable. I watched that video of Trent just do the zonal marking and not actually move. And allow that ball just straight to the middle. I mean, I don't know how you change that. That was miserable. I felt so kind of bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. You know, I was actively actually taking notes during this Champions League game because I wanted to find something coming off of Butch's high horse of beating Newcastle. I wanted to find something that we could give props for. The first 20 minutes, they looked awesome. They looked like the Liverpool of old. They looked like they were coming out for blood. They put 2 goals in. They looked amazing. And then they absolutely imploded. Starting off with Allison's mistake, you know, in the back, that really just defeated the team for the rest of the game. I think as we moved into the second half, we saw starting the second half at 2-2 and then letting up 3 goals, a team just absolutely shocked of confidence at the moment. I think they took that into Crystal Palace. There wasn't anyone in the team that looked like they wanted to make a difference. From back to front, they just didn't want to do it. Butch talks about it every single week, and I'll just emphasize it. They need a new midfield so badly. It's so apparent, you know, watching every week how bad their midfield is. And I just wonder how long it's going to be before they replace it.
I think my favorite part about this entire game was the fact that with the history that these two teams have, Butch in the 14th minute texting us saying, all the haters quiet now.
Oh, yeah.
And then proceeded to be tied to 2-2 no more than like
receipts were kept.
Yeah.
15 minutes later. I mean, not only is it awesome
He was nowhere to be
Liverpool to see Liverpool lose in that fashion, but it's almost better the fact they had like the taste of like they were looking good, and all of a sudden a very average Real Madrid team went to Anfield and just destroyed them for 7-5.
The floor fell out from under them.
A bunch of us made some good money off of those live pots because we were hitting Real Madrid 3 ways to Sunday.
Yeah, I think when I took it, it was Real Madrid plus 1,800 is when I got in on that for the money line. Now, you know, Butch isn't here to talk about it, but I am curious for the rest of you this week. Jurgen Klopp came out in a press conference and mentioned that he was going to stay. I know that there's been a lot of talk about him leaving, him resigning, but he came out this week and said, like, I'm here to stay. I'm here to rebuild. What are your thoughts on that? Do we think that Liverpool is going to get back to the heights of what they were the last couple of years, or do we think that this is going to kind of be what they'll be over the next couple of years?
I think it depends on what they're owned by Fenway Sports Group, I think. Yeah. So I'm assuming that if he plans on staying, that they plan on backing him up in the transfer window. I think that with how old a lot of these players are, they'll probably trade away some guys, get rid of some guys, and clear some, not cap space, but have some extra money to buy some players. And that's got to be the main reason he's staying. Otherwise, you know, I would assume he would take a year off and coach a national team or move to a different club, you know, in the summer. So they need help.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be you're going to have to buy. I think that's the thing. I think that Butchie's talked about it a lot, is they have a lengthy process of bringing guys in, and I don't know how well that suits for Klopp, because I don't think his patience is that high to where he'll stick around for another year or two of down days. I think that he'd be looking towards something for the future, but that's just my thought.
I also think they're very much favorites, at least early favorites for Jude. And the rumors that I'm reading are that Champions League isn't going to defer him either way, which I don't know how much I believe that. But like if they get Jude, like their midfield is not instantly transformed, but like you compare Thiago with Jude, and like you're only a few pieces away then if you fix that midfield up to where as much like I don't think that he's going to go there, but if he does, like the Liverpool revival, like is like instant almost in my opinion, to where, yes, they're down a year. I do think it's funny that last year all the Liverpool fans were talking about how they were going to win the quad, and then it just came instantly crashing down, and now here they are in 7th place. So that's enjoyable. But I kind of hope Klopp stays because I don't think he's going to get it right. I truthfully don't.
They feel a lot like the Blues right now, to be honest with you. Just Jake Wine may piggyback off this, but you know, you have the Hendos, you have that old era of guys that have been there for, you know, extensive period of time, and now, you know, it's only good for so long until, you know, your dynasties only last for so long until you need to get moved again. So definitely interesting to see where they go with the Page. And, you know, I don't know your guys' opinion, but like Jude seems like a guy who'd be like, I feel like Madrid could suit him better than than staying in England. I don't know, just my opinion from the outside. It seems like an English guy would be better on staying abroad than those English guys that stays in England and kind of fizzes out.
Like Mason Mount
or
yeah, I mean, it's
Deli or anybody.
It's interesting because I think that Jude makes any midfield better. I think he's one of those players that, you know, any midfield in the world he makes better, and it's just, to your point, Scott, what's going to be the best move for him. And I think at some point we'll see him at the Prem. I think it's just, you know, he's only 19. He has another 15 years ahead of him. At some point we'll see him in the Prem, but it'll be interesting if it's this summer. The one thing that I did find interesting was, as we know, Liverpool's also been up for sale for the last 3 months. Fenway also came out and said that they're not for sale anymore. So I think that there has to be something going on behind the scenes between Fenway, Klopp, probably transfers in the upcoming summer, because for Klopp to come out and say that he's not leaving, for Fenway to say that they're not selling, there has to be something on in the water. I agree with you, Dubs. I don't think that Klopp's going to figure it out. I don't think that we're going to be sitting here next year talking about Liverpool being, you know, title contenders. So we'll see. But moving on to a big game for this podcast and a big game for the people in the chat, Chelsea versus Tottenham. Tottenham were victorious this week with a 2-0 win for a squad that was pretty injured. Tottenham, like, you're starting a second tier midfield. You're starting a lot of backups against a very, very, very expensive squad in Chelsea. So Andy Hoover. Yeah. Andy, you know, because I can't say injured. I can't say injured because they have under 10 injuries. I can't say that. So,
and they might be talented.
Andy Hoover, I'm going to start with you, man. Yeah.
I mean,
lay it on us. How you feeling?
Where do you want to start? I think, again, Christian Stellini might be that guy. He might be that guy. I made the comparison to our good buddy Dan Hornsey, and I was texting him. He was like, "What do you think about that influence?" And I was like, "I think it's like when the substitute teacher or the student teacher in your 5th grade class gives the test, right? So you're taking the test with her, and she wants you to succeed, and the person that you're scared of, or the person that you have that has that kind of the teacher is not present to really monitor how, you kind of see where I'm going here. I think there's some pressure.
The hilarious comparison.
I think there's some pressure. I think there's some pressure lifted off who they are, what they have to be, what they have to do every minute on the pitch for Antonio Conte. That's definitely my take. But again, it was another Conte-built, style game. The first 45 kind of sucked. It was scrappy. There were small chances both sides. But then, 30 seconds into the second half, Oliver Skipp, who's not played a ton of regular minutes this year, but has always kind of been a consistent young kid coming up. He had a worldie, bro. Like he had awesome. a half volley outside foot screamer that was at Kepa, but had enough bend and dip that he pushed it off the bar in. Like that was a missile. I don't know how the rest of the game would go if that doesn't happen immediately in the second half, because I think what we've talked about in the past is Chelsea had some really, really, really slick buildup that kind of cut Tottenham open here and there, but then there's just fizzled. Everything just fizzled. All the chances they had were half chances, maybe at best. But, Harry Kane's Mr. Inevitable. Those back post runs are on all day. I wouldn't even need to really hit on the Ziyech thing. I think the thing about that is that the consistency with VAR is bad, is shocking, but that's not necessarily shocking. We've been over this enough times in the podcast that I don't think we need to beat that drum. But Scotty, man, that was a lot of fun.
I texted actually you during this, and for a team that's, it feels that always has our number for whatever the reason is, the title run of whatever year that was when Leicester took the crown, is like they're always just there just to mess up our vibe and whatnot. So to finally get a full season ahead of them, get under a belt, feels nice going forward. People also forget this. So just like Manchester City has never won at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, until yesterday, Chelsea was undefeated at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So which is another crazy thing to look at.
Fortress.
Exactly. So, I think just sheer of being your London rival is a big thing for the club going forward and making the right progress attacking. But the bigger problem is right now if you're in the Chelsea locker room. I hate to start this dig early, but if you're in the Chelsea locker room,
Let's start.
Strike while the iron's hot. When in Rome, but you got to be asking some serious questions around what's going on and who's the problem right there is too many cooks in the kitchen, and there's a lot of them in there. So I'm not sure.
There's a lot of them in there. James, as I know that you don't want to talk about Chelsea, but again, drawing the short straw, you have to. What's going on?
I feel like this is where the violin should start playing. It's like
we're just everybody starts crying. Yeah, everybody starts feeling bad for me.
Starts playing.
Yeah. My keynote to the game, Silva going down in the 19th minute, that really hurts the team. Just period. Like that's the guy.
Prior to that, though.
Yeah, probably, but he didn't. So, yeah. Huge fall off for the team. I think Fofana's looked okay at times, but I think that he still needs time to kind of build into this system. And what I would like to see is him play next to Silva rather than take his place, ideally. I think that you really saw it towards the second half of the game when Fofana started to push forward a lot more and play almost as like a CDM and let Enzo play more forward, which really created a lot of problems. Unfortunately it's just not a good place. I still think that Potter's he can't, at least to where my mind goes, is that there is a lack of being able to inspire these guys. Like, I think that when I watch Chelsea comes out with training videos every single time, it's finishing is literally all they fucking do. That's it. And it's the defense, it's the midfield, it's the attackers, it's everybody. And it's just crazy that it's like you get 10 shots on the game or whatever it was, and realistically maybe one of them was an actual good chance. It's really tough to continue to watch that. And that's kind of been their story the last 3 or 4 years, but they've been able to find a way to make 1 or 2 of them fall into the net, and it's just not happening right now. So,
well, I'd be curious, Jake, outside of, I mean, none of us are Premier League managers, we know that, but you yourself have been part of plenty of championship winning teams, national championship winning teams. As well as any of us that, when something isn't working, you can't just focus on that. Sometimes you have to get outside of just focusing on finishing. So if you could wave a magic wand and you could make training fun for Chelsea, if you could have them focus on something for a week, what would you do? What would you do differently inside of that squad outside of just the finishing thing?
Dude, I quite honestly have no clue. This is at a point where Hoover and I have talked about this, and he even sent a message of Chelsea winning every single stat every single week, and quite literally, with the exception of this week, really taking hold of the game in its entirety, whether it's defensively through the midfield, moving the ball, getting chances, having more expected goals, doing all of that. But you're winning every single aspect, but you're still letting 1 or 2 in every game, period. And on top of that, you're just not scoring. I know that there's times to where you can look towards other things, but there's not a lot of things that they're doing poorly. Quite honestly, when they have the right guys in, I think that kind of the same thing I've said for the last 3 weeks is you just have to play your dogs, man. It doesn't matter who you're playing. You're playing Leeds next week. If you don't win there, there's no fucking chance that Graham Potter should be in charge. Period.
Tough place to play, man.
It is a tough place to play. Yeah. And you have a rejuvenated team, quote unquote.
We had fun there
with West there. I think that brings a lot of team morale. So, I mean, I think it's for us, it's just, you have to win. It's not even get points. It's not even get a draw. You have to win the game. And it's not win off a penalty or something. It's win handily. I think is what you have to do.
It's a gut check game for them.
Yeah, 100%.
They should go paintballing. They should just hang out more. Bro,
That's what I'm saying.
Some,
team bonding.
They should have some team bonding, bro. Get drunk in someone's basement. Like
they need the Marquette.
That's what I like. That's what I would do. I would schedule that for sure.
Like, let's take a day
go
off.
hit the Rippers. Go do everything. Go
They
have
need,
fun.
they need like one
of
those initiation nights where they have all the new signings. They lock them in a room and get them wasted, and then just
Jesus. Not saying that happened with any of our,
Yeah.
No.
Surely have.
Yeah. No.
never.
I just don't like, even just looking at the subs that Potter made during this game. Like, I was texting you guys a little bit of like, none of it makes sense. Like, João Felix, every time he touched the ball, looked like he was the best player in the field and looked like he was going to make something happen. You get to the 83rd minute, you're down goals, and you take him off and leave Kai on the field, or you take like Ziyech. Like, none of the subs like really make sense, because like it was so clear too. Even if you'd never watched soccer before, you could tell that João Felix was different than everybody else out there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're down a goal, why not just put him as your 9 or switch him out wide, switch something different? That's what you're saying, Jake, is like, leave your dogs out there. So taking him out of the game doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. And like, as much as I like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, like, I think that there is a space that needs to be filled in that spot. And I think Conte is finally starting with training, which definitely helps the squad a lot, of giving Enzo more room to be able to run forward and being able to be more of an offensive threat. There's times where he gets the ball and wants to push forward and then continually has to look off on what's going on around him and where other guys are. I love Ruben, but like, since coming back from injury, he hasn't been, I won't say the greatest. He hasn't been the worst on the team by a long shot, but it's
not the same.
No, he's not. You can tell he's still working through some things, getting like back up to game speed.
I forget about that guy.
And I know that.
Go ahead,
Dobes.
I was just going to say, the last person I want to mention from this game, at least, is I fucking love Christian Romero. Like, he's one of those players that, like, I love guys that can wind the other team up, that put in the tackle, that you just absolutely fucking hate to play against. And he did that to a T in this game. He had the little extra tackles, but he was great in some big moments. But that's like the ideal type of center back. He reminds me of Licha, just that, dog, South American.
Can be kind of psycho at times.
Can be kind of psycho. Like,
I texted you guys though that they're cut from the same cloth, bro.
Yeah, bro.
Those guys
100%.
are homies. That he's a freak, and I think did he not get a yellow card this game? That's some real restraint for my man. I'm proud of him for that. I'm sure that we'll miss a game here in the future because of some sort of accumulation, but I agree, dude. He's so fun to watch, and like, when you can pick a defender out on a field of really talented players and be like, I really like him. Like, he's done some cool things. Like, I think that goes a really long way, as underrated as they are sometimes. But
absolutely.
I would be remiss not to mention Forster made some saves. And we were on this podcast, a week ago, just saying how that man couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. He made some saves. He made some great saves, and he's huge. We talked about that the other night on Pro Clubs, but that man is large and he covers up a lot of the goal. So I think that we can spend a lot of time talking about how Chelsea lost the game, obviously, in this function there. But I think that it would be a huge missed opportunity if we didn't say that Tottenham were great, and the resiliency to come out and score 2 goals in the second half. You don't know what they say at halftime, but 30 seconds into the second half, scoring a goal has to be a hell of a team talk. So big shout out to you all in Tottenham. Stellini, Oliver Skip. I mean, man, take a bow. That was great.
Stellini, as Hoop would say, is just that teacher, the sub that like you see roll into TV that's getting ready to put a movie.
That guy.
Yeah, that's right.
Here we go. Moving on to the other team in London. Arsenal came away with a 1-0 win against Leicester. And when you're looking at the table, it may not look like a big win, but Leicester's given some trouble to some teams in the last couple of weeks. They are also finding their form. So that's a big win for Arsenal, keeps the title race alive. Lucas, give us the breakdown.
Yeah. You said it, 1-0 win away at Leicester. Away games are always tough. King Power Stadium was bumping, especially after Trossard's goal got called back, but Martinelli had a beautiful goal in the 46th minute on a great through ball from Trossard after nutmegging Sutar. But what a finish from Gabby. I know that we were talking about it after, but just kind of like leaning away and to bring his right foot across like that, it was class. And I think that, we've talked about Martinelli in the past couple of podcasts that I've been on, just kind of struggling lately in his own right. So I think that was really big for him personally and mentally to kind of find that. We should have cruised this game regardless. It was lopsided as it should have been. Ramsdale didn't have to make a save. It was a pretty physical game, but I think that we were pretty defensively sound. 2 goals called back. Like I said, the worldie from Trossard, Ben White blocked their keeper's arm, impeded him, so they called it back, and then another by Saka, who was inches offsides. But the main thing I wanted to highlight here, and he's my background, was Trossard this go around. He was the man of the match for me, no doubt. And he played a false 9 role in that game and allowed us to still play Arsenal football. But watching that game, and I was talking to you about it, Hen, but it reminded me of something Dobe said on a previous podcast. He asked if the teams have Arsenal figured out, if they kind of know what to expect and they know how to play Arsenal. And I think that him playing in that role allowed us to play a little differently. And on top of that, I don't think we took a set piece or a corner the same way the entire game. We were lining up with 2 guys, 3 guys, laying it off short, going long, etc. And I think that in itself, on top of him playing that role, really, really put Leicester on their heels, and they couldn't really figure out exactly what was going on. But Trossard was super involved. He allowed, Gabby and Odegaard to switch roles pretty easily with himself. Something that was, as we know, was a lot more difficult for Nketiah to do, making us, more predictable with Eddie. But he drops deep. He causes trouble for their center backs. He's a goal scoring threat, as we saw in his hat trick at Anfield earlier this season. Shout out Butch. And then especially on Saturday. So he's great in tight spaces, and he's a playmaker when he needs to be too. But I think that until Gabby Jesus returns, he could be really a surprise piece in that false 9 role that we need to grind out these games one at a time and get every single crucial 3 points. So at the end of the day, we got the 3 points. I'm proud of the lads, and on to Everton on Wednesday for a little revenge game at the Emirates.
Yeah, it's a big win for you all. Looking at February was not kind to you all at all. The last month, 3 losses, 2 wins, and a tie. You're only as good as your next game, and this has the potential to really start off March in a really good direction for you all. You can go 5 games on the bounce here, but February was a really tough month for you all. So it's good for you in the title races for you to get this win today, or on Saturday. It's good for you to get that win. We'll see what you do. Yeah, I mean, it's huge. You guys had a bad month, and you got to turn it around. So we'll see.
Winks, question for you. So I texted Nate about this, and I'm curious your thoughts as well, because you guys just recently you drew Sporting in the Europa League, which by the way, I did not want to play Sporting at all. I just know that those Portuguese teams always play good in the big European competitions. But in terms of moving forward, there's been a lot of talk that I've seen about not necessarily not focusing on the Europa League and focusing everything on the Prem, because you guys are getting down to the point now where every single point in the Prem matters. Like every single game is like a final. So what are your thoughts on people saying that like you should sort of take the Europa League lightly, but not necessarily play all the starters for both legs? Like what would you do if you're Arteta? Because I almost feel like it's definitely decision time where you either got to go all in on one or the other.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. As a manager of a club who hasn't won a Prem in quite some time and has won the Europa League more recently than a Prem title, I feel like you look at it in a perfect world, we go for both. And we signed some depth players for instances like this in the January window. But for me, I look at what trophy is more important to the club, which is obviously the Premier League trophy. And so with, Gabby Jesus still out, I It's tough. I know that Arteta is going to do the right thing, and Arteta we trust, but I would prefer a Premier League title over a Europa League title, and I think that a lot of our subs are still coming on against Premier League teams, so I think that it's an opportunity. Maybe the first leg we play our starters and try and
See
get
how
the
it
win.
goes.
And then and especially I don't even know if it's away or not our first leg against them, but if it's away,
It is away.
playing our starters, getting goals on aggregate, and then hopefully I would love to see Trossard starting at that false nine again. So starting Nketiah, Smith Rowe, guys like that, and seeing what happens. So I say go for gold in the Prem and
that's
not throw away the
Arsenal.
Europa League, but
yeah, that's the thing with Arsenal is like your depth isn't exactly like you don't have City's depth by any means. So that's why it'll be super, super sort of interesting to see how Arteta navigates a game on Thursday and a game at the weekend to see sort of who he plays, because you almost kind of have to favor the Prem games, but you obviously want to win every trophy that's in front of you.
Yeah, and looking at the schedule, it's we're not playing big six clubs. After these Europa League games, we have Fulham after the first leg, and then Crystal Palace after the second one. But as we know, Fulham's given the big six clubs some shit.
Yeah.
They're top six now.
Fulham's going to get themselves into Europe.
I was going to say, it took us like an 89th minute Garnacho winner to beat them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. Only time will tell for the Arsenal lads. Moving on. I say it every week. It's a great week to be a Manchester United fan. And I think this week was my favorite week to be a Manchester United fan. 2 absolutely massive wins. United, Barcelona in the Europa League 2-1, and the Carabao Cup final over Newcastle 2-0. Dobes, after 6 years, how good does it feel to win a trophy? And give us your thoughts on the 2 games.
First off, feels amazing. Couldn't be happier. If you would have told me a week ago that we were to play Barcelona at home, beat them, and then 2.5 days later win a final, I would have told you were crazy. I would have taken one or the other. Both were massive games. First off, I'm going to talk about the final a little bit. Yes, it is a Mickey Mouse Cup. You guys can call it small. You can call it whatever you want. Let's not forget that the day after Liverpool lost a Champions League final, they had an open bus parade with the Carabao Cup. So it could be a Mickey Mouse Cup to some clubs, but clubs like Liverpool have open bus parades for it. But in terms of what it means for United, like to go into the game, I think if you listen to Goldbridge or listen to Ten Hag, this game was like won in the press conference. I've listened to Goldbridge talk about this a bunch of times, but on Friday in the press conference, you heard Ten Hag sit there and call Newcastle boring, say that they keep the ball out of play enough times, they sit in a low block, and Eddie Howe took the bait because United was playing 2.5 days later. We didn't have the energy to sit there and keep the ball, play fast pace. So what we did is we sat in and kept on the counter, and Newcastle came out, tried to keep the ball, and it ended up hurting them because that's not the type of team they are. Breaking down the game specifically, by no means did United look great. It was not our best stuff. It wasn't fluid football, but we still had 2 moments of brilliance where our quality just showed through. Like the Casemiro header, unbelievable. Shout out Big Woot. He's my background right now for the assist on what is now credited the Rashford goal. The key takeaway from this is just that not that it's a massive trophy, but just that some of these guys that aren't your Casemiros, that aren't your Varans, that aren't your serial winners haven't been there, done this. So many of these players have never touched a trophy before. They don't know how it feels. They've never done it. They've been considered for the last 5 years or just an absolute failure at United. So just for these guys in Ten Hag's first chance, get hands on a trophy, shows that these guys that they can do it and they're winners. It just gives them that much more confidence going into every single game. And I also think the exciting part is it's just the start. Like, I think this is just the start to where you heard Ten Hag right after the game. He almost forgot the Carabao Cup trophy after his press conference. He just left it there. It was like, are you guys drinking or celebrating after this? He's like, no, it's fine, but we have West Ham on Wednesday. So I think that's where the mentality comes in, that trophy's massive. If you would have asked me before the season, what's a successful season, I would have said 1 trophy in top 4. I think we've pretty much locked that up. So now everything here is from a bonus, but extremely happy with the performance. And curious your thoughts, Han. I don't even need to really touch too much on Barcelona, but curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, quickly on Barcelona, I think we saw Barcelona. We saw two heavyweight teams going at it. Even though Barcelona were without two of their top stars and Gavi and Pedri, it was still a hard fought game. I mean, there was so much emotion. Yeah, very true. There was so much emotion going back and forth between both teams at Old Trafford. You saw the fans get into it. You saw everyone so excited. I mean, I was at Amsterdam with one of my buddies, just like screaming my head off, feeling so excited. You saw one style of football on that Thursday, and then 2.5 days later, like you said, Dobes, for us to show up again and not play our best, but still get the result. It's something that, brings me a lot of confidence as a United fan. We've said it for a lot of weeks now, but in Ten Hag, we trust the way that he did take on that press conference on Friday and in the little things that he added in, just so special. I was glued to the TV with the volume off because ESPN Plus's commentators are atrocious. But watching with the sound off, watching Ten Hag celebrate with each one of the players individually, bringing a little bit of that dancing that he did with Martinez and Anthony at Ajax back to Manchester United. And then one of my favorites, if not my most favorite part of the celebration, was him pulling Kabi Menu aside, the 17-year-old midfielder who was not dressed for the game. But in the midst of the celebrations, Ten Hag put his arm around him, and, we can't read lips. We don't know exactly what he said, but it almost looks like he's saying, like, look around, this is going to be yours one day. You're going to be part of this. And that just, for me, for the next several years as a manager, just gets me so excited. So it's been a long time, on this podcast, on TikToks, on Twitter, whatever it's been, we've done combined 11s. And, I've always thought about the 12th. So which coach would I take? This is like one of the first times, in the last, 10 years that I would put our coach up against any coach in the entire world. And that's a great feeling. So we are going to lose games. The run will come to an end at some point, but it's nice to see that we were at least rewarded a little bit on Sunday for all of the stuff that we've gone through this season. So great game. Very, very excited.
Yeah, the last point I'm going to make is I have to shout out my background because I fucking love the guy. Like, if you would have told Wout Weghorst that 6 months ago that he'd be starting a final and holding up a trophy for Man United, you'd probably tell him that he would, like, fucking crazy. And this guy couldn't even do an interview yesterday because he was near tears just thanking Ten Hag for absolutely giving him the opportunity. And not only has he seized that opportunity, but, like, United fans have drastically fallen in love with this guy.
Yeah.
Because he's not a goal scorer. He's not going to be the pretty guy. But yet, since Ronaldo left, since December 27th, we've lost one time, and it's the league leaders Arsenal. And Wout has stepped in and been a fucking pressing machine. I ordered a Wout Weghorst jersey, and I cannot wait for it to get here.
Yes.
I fucking love this guy.
Everybody needs a Fernando Llorente on their team, so
that's a great shout. That's fantastic. It is cool. He's 30 years old. Weghorst is. It's his first trophy, first professional trophy that he's won in his career at 30 years old. So
his Wikipedia page just got it one line longer.
Yeah, sure did. So call it a Mickey Mouse Cup, but very exciting for guys like that. Also, if we're thinking ahead, adds, maybe a couple million to Maguire's price tag in the summer. So I'm all for that. He's officially a captain that's raised a trophy now. So
what a joke that is.
So West Ham coming up, we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but that was our weekly recap. It's a segment that we do every single week where you can count on us to recap our biggest games of the last week for each one of our teams. But moving on to a new segment, we're figuring out the name for this segment, but essentially what it is, one of us is going to choose the weekly flowers and the weekly showers. So it'll be one person, team, that deserves flowers, that deserves accolades. It's your star of the week. And then one person that just needs to hit the showers. It wasn't their week. It's not good. So Connor Sandober, you're going to start us off this week with the weekly flowers and the weekly showers.
I'm very excited for this one, as I think all of us should be excited for this one. This is also a great segment. You guys want me to do flowers or showers first? I think, should I do showers? No. See, I think I kind of have to. I kind of have to do flowers. So my flowers this week are just going to go to St. Louis City. It's kind of chalk. It's kind of chalk for this week. But at the same time, I think it has to be. I don't think a lot of us had many expectations going into the game Saturday night, I guess, to set the stage a little bit. St. Louis City opened up their first ever MLS game this weekend against Austin, who last year made it to the Western Conference Final. I think we were plus 500 going into the game, so not a whole lot of expectations. And we came out and punched them square in the mouth, ended up going down 2-1, and then came back and ended up winning the game 3-2. So this is like the first MLS game I've watched in years from like start to finish. But I also think the way that we played in that first half was something that I think everybody that has supported St. Louis soccer can be proud of. Like those guys balled. There was high press all over the field in a hostile environment against a team who's been there and done that. And is, I think, one of the odds-on favorites to actually win this year. So for us to sort of step up in that environment and win the game like that, just give credit to the ownership group, two, like Lutz, the coach, Cornwell, like all the guys that have been part of making this happen. It's only right that they are our first week of Flowers. Now, the Showers, I'm not so happy to sort of dive into here, but I think the poor kid he has to get it. Like, sticking in St. Louis, and Showers this week is going with Kippy Keller. I'm sorry. Like, the poor kid had one of the worst games as a center back that I've ever seen. He was directly at fault for all 3 goals. The header, Parker beat him. That second goal might be one of the worst goals I've ever seen in my entire life, where he literally just turned around and played Stroud in. And then the third goal where Klaus dropped him. By the way, Butchie chose not to blame Keller, so Butch isn't blaming Keller for that one, but he got absolutely dropped by Klaus in the third goal. So my showers this week, I have to go to Kip Keller. St. Louis boy, loved watching him at SLU, but I'm sorry, brother. It's time for you to hit the fucking showers.
That was our weekly Flowers and weekly Showers, presented by this week's fictional sponsor, The Pitch, the new soccer pub that opened up today.
You hear that? This spot could be yours.
This could be yours, the fictional sponsor of The Pitch. But moving along, we wanted to add in the weekly Flowers and Showers so we could talk about St. Louis SC, 3-2 over Austin. You gave shout outs to a couple people, but I know all of us watched. So Hoove, you were stoked. You won some money that day. What were your thoughts as a fan watching?
Dude, I hit him on every possible way that I could have bet on them to come away with something from that game. So that hit, which was awesome. Like Dobe said, like there was an identity, right? And we knew what the identity was because Lutz Flanenstiel came over here from Munich and was like, nope, this is exactly what we're gonna do. He went out and got guys that he thought were going to fit into that style, into that team first identity that it very much so looked like to me. And that and he did it like to perfection. And we'd watched the sketchy streams of the B team last year when we could. And I think we saw it then there too, without 60% of the starting lineup, but the kids that they had doing it, like there's an academy understanding, like they're top to bottom, a complete style, system, mindset. And that was the first game. Like, what's not to be excited about that? Like, I think I was one of the guys way early that was like, we're going to win the league first year. I have no question. I said that statement so many times to so many people. And then more media and leading up to the, first game, it was like, okay, well, maybe not. We might get punched in the teeth and we might just suck all year because that's how expansion teams can go. But I'm back to being on top of the league. Like, I think if you can recreate that performance 80% of the time, you're getting there. And then you just have to win a couple games straight. So that's exciting. I'll let you guys chip in because I know, man, I was just screaming in my house. Like I had a good group of friends over and we were like losing our minds. The João Klaus goal, I didn't say anything. I was just like, oh shit. Like he just tucked that. But man, so fun.
The Brazilian, non-Brazilian João Klaus.
He's the most
we'll gotta
German
check.
Brazilian in the world.
Yeah, I gotta check his passport. You said it, but Dobes, but Lutz brought a lot of these guys over to have an identity. I had the opportunity, or actually earlier today, to listen to him speak at like a media conference, and he specifically called out what he was going to do and not going to do, and he brought up teams like the LA Galaxy and LAFC that have superstars on their team where in his words, not mine, they come over at 35, 36 years old to have a kick out and a payday. But that's not what we're building here. We're building a team that wants to play together, that wants to work hard. Dobes almost threw up earlier in the week. He listened to a podcast describing our style of play as energy drink soccer, which is
fucking terrible.
Not the case at all. And Lutz actually talked about that today too. He said that by no means are we energy drink soccer, but what we want to do is we want to high press and we want to make the other teams uncomfortable. And we want to make, St. Louis Stadium the most uncomfortable place to play in the United States for other teams, which brings us to, this upcoming week. We have a big game. It's our first ever home MLS game against Charlotte FC, which is exciting. They were an expansion team last year. So we'll be able to see the stark contrast between the two franchises. And I know a lot of us will be going to that. So it'll be a big deal. But I want to give shouts out to Hemi Parker scoring the first goal in the club's history. Blom.
Himothy.
Looked
Blom,
good at center back.
Yeah.
Dude, looked awesome. Blom, how do you say his name? Who?
He's a dog.
Blom, number 6 was a dog.
94% passing, 100% accuracy on long balls, 100% on tackles won, 100% on ground duels won.
And that man came in cold, didn't even warm up. That's an injury substitution right there. And finally, I want to give a shout out to 17-year-old Miggy Perez from Pattonville High School. Just a breakthrough in the academy over the last couple of months and in the preseason really showed what he can do. Interestingly enough, he got recruited and he got seen as a number 9. And Lutz today said his best positions actually as a 6 or an 8. So it'll be interesting to watch his progression over the next couple of years. But we might have found ourselves a young superstar in the 17-year-old there. So I'm stoked for this weekend. And I know a lot of us are going to be there for that opening game. But we have a lot more to look forward to throughout the week. So starting on Wednesday, we have Full America versus Leeds United States. This game has a lot of eyes on it inside of the States because of that reason. A lot of American players. What are our thoughts on this one, fellas?
I mean, you always kind of know what you're going to get with Leeds, right? Like, not to take anything away from them, but it's going to be a sloppily physical game. And it's going to take, one of those obscene high presses of theirs to choke out one of the 2 American defenders into making a mistake to score goals. And Fulham's been really, really consistent. Like they've just had a solid identity. They hold the ball well. I think Mitrovic is back this week, maybe.
That's exciting.
He's been out for a while. I think they're like. I listened to the game they played midweek this week, and at the end of the game I was listening to some of the pressers, and they're like, we got to keep just looking to the next game. It's like we don't have objectives. Like we don't have anything set. The number one objective was to stay in the league this year. We think we've done that. So now it's like they have nothing to lose. Like they are playing with house money, and that's a team that's tough to bet against. They're having a lot of fun playing.
And they love Tim Ream, bro. We saw a TikTok today of the last game that they played of every time he touched the ball, they're just yelling Ream. He did a little cut back on the side. People are losing their marbles for that, man. He's so fun to watch. But who knows? It's the FA Cup. Anything can happen. Leeds could sneak away with a win on this one. But it'll certainly be a dogfight, this one.
I think it was a big success for for America this summer as well, having Jedi and Tim Ream next to each other. And people forget Jedi's getting, I'm not sure the reality behind it, but rumors was Pep was like eyeing Jedi for a little bit. He's the way he gets up and down the wing. It's fun to watch itself. So it's just a fun style of footy to be watching and take part in. So
We'll see. It'll be an exciting watch on Wednesday in the FA Cup. Tottenham Sheffield United is also happening. What a great draw for you all in the FA Cup. But how do you like your chances in this one?
If it was Wrexham, we would have lost to. You know that.
Yep, I was praying for it, dude. I was so glad.
If it was Wrexham, it was in the stars. It was.
Dude, Netflix was coming to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and they were gonna record a downfall of epic proportions. For Hollywood's just they're writing their pages out, dude. No, I completely agree, and I'm scared of Sheffield. Like they've been playing really well in the championship. I think they're top 3. Top 2 maybe, but we're talking about Tottenham Hotspur lads. We're, week after week, it's a roller coaster. You truly have no idea. I think the lineup's extremely dependent on this one. I think you want to get guys rest where you can, but I think the drop off of the guys that we have on the bench, it's better with Danjuma, I think, and Pedro Porro. I hope gets some minutes there too, but. You hope you beat the championship teams. Like, you realistically, your B team should be able to beat the championship team, and that should be the sign of a top 6 club. But again,
yeah, I'll be curious to see what your starting 11 is going to look like. I think it'll be really dependent on that. I also hope that Porro plays. I would love to get to watch him for a couple of minutes in there, and then Danjuma would be fun to watch as well. I imagine Son will play, will start because he's been on the bench the last 2. So I imagine he'll start as well. We also have United West Ham. Dobes, thoughts, predictions?
No. Just rolling along. I mean, I think this is going to be with Liverpool with Liverpool at the weekend. I think that Liverpool game is sort of like a statement if we're in this title race or not. If we can go to Anfield and get a result, I think that sort of cements ourselves in the title race. So therefore, I think on Wednesday we'll probably see Maguire, we'll probably see Lindelof, we'll give Leach and Varane a break. It'll be interesting to see how the midfield shapes up because we are such a different team without Casemiro. But I would assume that Sabitzer would come in and start. I would love to see Rashford get a break against Newcastle. He scored, but he didn't look like himself. So I'm just expecting some shakeup. I expect us to win. West Ham has not been great this season. Expect us to win, but at the same time can never overlook them. So it'll be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah, I think that we'll see a huge rotation out of the squad. As you mentioned, I imagine that it'll be a completely different back 4. Who knows if De Gea will start, but we'll see a pretty big rotation. Winks, Arsenal, Everton. We have some Premier League action this week as well, midweek. How are you feeling?
Feel really good. Like I said earlier, revenge game at home. The Emirates is going to be popping. We have Bournemouth at the weekend, so I think that we'll probably start everybody. I don't really know whether or not Arteta is going to start Thomas Partey or Jorginho. But with Partey not really getting a lot of minutes in our last couple games, I imagine that Thomas Partey will be back in the lineup. And with our home atmosphere and an unfortunate 1-0 loss to them last game, getting a goal called back that shouldn't have, and us, being fairly shit on their counter opportunities. I think, Arteta's going into the next couple training sessions and probably already has since Saturday, working on trying to minimize their counter opportunities and not getting too many guys forward that we can't, accurately, negate their counter opportunities. So I think as long as we do that.
Is Partey 100%? I know that you said that he hasn't gotten minutes, but is he back fully fit?
I don't know. I don't think he started against Leicester, but I think he came on. I'd have to double check that. But yeah, he came on in the 84th. So we'll see if he's fully healthy. I don't know if he is, but if he is, I imagine, they'll put him back in for this. If not, maybe Bournemouth is a good game to get him a start and rolling again. But
yeah,
we're gonna have to.
Everton doesn't have that.
I think you have to roll Trossard through the middle again. Like
100%.
I think
He's a dog.
this is no like slight on Nketiah, but I just think that Trossard adds that other element to where like you guys have been great everywhere else, but the final third. I think Trossard adds that different element. He got, unfortunately, I mean, I think rightfully so, got his goal called off this past weekend, but he's just so much more dangerous, and I think can also create on his own, which I don't think Nketiah can do. I think Trossard 1v1 is not afraid to take somebody on with that experience as a winger. It's just a different threat than what Nketiah provides.
He's got a lot more tools in his belt, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Nketiah has missed some big chances recently that he shouldn't have, so I agree. I hope he starts, and I have to think he will, but having the Gooners at the Emirates being loud and annoying, I think is gonna make a big difference too.
I think the Prem is so ruthless. I mean,
Oh,
Trossard has played in the false nine for one game, and we're saying he has to start next game. And Nketiah has put in a shift for like 3 months and like carried Arsenal to where they are right now.
I just think Arsenal doesn't have time to waste though. Like
I know games, they don't, but it's ruthless.
I mean, we see it every year. Players ebb and flow, and very rarely do they carry top form throughout an entire season. So I think that when you see someone start to fall off, Martinelli wasn't starting for a couple games there. They put Trossard in because his form started to fall off. Eddie's had a rough last couple of games, missing some big chances. So it's one of those things where you start somebody else in their spot a couple games. Now they have competition, and now the minutes that they do get, they're gonna want to go balls to the wall, and that's something that without Gabby Jesus, Eddie didn't. He was doing so well, but reached a certain level of comfortability, especially being at the top of the table, that he didn't have anybody like pushing for his spot. They weren't going to, without Trossard coming here, they weren't going to move Gabby to the middle. They weren't going to, do any of that. So I think that it's something like in any sport, you put somebody else in their position, it forces them to work harder. So hopefully it benefits them both, but
only time will tell.
Time will tell.
We have Liverpool and Wolves. Liverpool is certainly way less fun to talk about without revving up Butch, but they got to make a statement. Like, I mean, if they want to salvage anything, they're in a must-win as well. Like, if they want any hope of top four, they have to win this game.
Yeah, you're not getting a ton of sympathy over here.
Yeah, no, sorry, man.
I could see another 3-0.
3-0 for Wolves though, eh?
Wolves and Liverpool, like Wolves always plays Liverpool like tough.
Yeah, they do.
I think much like Chelsea a little bit right now, like Liverpool's going through a confidence crisis. It's where like they do some great things, but they lack that confidence to get over the line. And the moment that things go bad, they're in the past, they're big egos, they're Hendersons, they're like Firminos, they're Salahs would rally the troops and they could bounce back. For now, you see them like after like Madrid scored the first, like you always knew they were going to score again because Liverpool just went down. So I think if Wolves come out and can punch them early, I think Wolves does have the chance to ability to make it a 2 or 3-1 or 3-0 game, which would be awesome leading into United Liverpool at the weekend.
It'd be so great. We need as little confidence as possible. I dig that. And moving into our last, well, actually, before we move into our last segment, if you're a fan of the game, there are some incredible games outside of the ones that we just covered midweek as well. We have El Clasico, Real Madrid versus Barcelona. That's on Thursday. We also have Leipzig against Dortmund this week as well. So just keep your eyes glued to the television over the next couple of days. You're just in for a really big treat of footy, a lot of great games to watch. But moving into our last and final segment of the week, we have our weekly factor cap with Mr. Coach Gaffer Butchart out. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to set the stage here, fellas. It's going to be a little bit different of a factor cap. This is going to be more of choose your number here. So we just finished match week 25 of the Prem, round 25 of the Prem, which means we still have a ways to go. Here is the question. I believe that Graham Potter is going to get sacked this year. I think it's going to happen. After which match week of the following match weeks will he get sacked? Between 25, which means he could get sacked before the weekend, and the end of the season, when does he get sacked?
I'll go first as the resident Chelsea fan.
Get it out of the way.
He's not getting sacked now. Like, plain and simple. They've pretty much come out and said that he's not going anywhere, at least for right now. I think, God, because you look at the next couple of weeks, you have Leeds, Dortmund, Leicester, Everton, Villa, Liverpool, Wolves, Brighton. Like, realistically, if a team is playing in form, you can win every single one of those games. Realistically, with where we're at right now,
You guys are not beating
dude. I know, and I think realistically, because we still have a chance in Champions League, I don't think there's a chance that he gets sacked before then. Plain and simple. I think the decision comes after that game. If we advance, he stays. And then who fucking knows what's going to happen from there. But like, for me, it goes until Dortmund. If we lose at Dortmund, he's gone. Or lose, against Dortmund.
Man, that's less than I was going to give him.
Yeah.
That's less than I want to give him. I want him gone now.
I think you're right.
I'm going after the Dortmund game. I'm with Jake. I don't think they beat Leeds. And I don't think they beat Dortmund. I mean, this Chelsea team has scored 4 goals this entire 2023.
Sick. Very cool.
So unless the Chelsea one it's so difficult because, yes, Bully's come out and said he's going to give Potter time. But I think it's going to become one of those situations where the fans are going to, if bad results continue, he's not going to have a choice. To where if they don't get a result versus Leeds and they don't advance in the Champions League and it looks like they're not even going to be playing in Europe, I think he's gone. And I don't think necessarily you can blame him 100%. But he definitely is playing some fault because I think the players have also definitely let him down in big moments. But I think if there's not a win versus Leeds and you get bounced by Dortmund, I think he's gone. I genuinely think there's no way there's already enough Potter out. That's out there right now, let alone if there's 2 more, either a draw or losses, like he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all depends on if they do this paintball thing or not.
Dude, yeah, if they paintball, bro, there's gonna be vibes
Could be a different
back
team
in that locker room.
No, I'm gonna say purely because I think it's fun as an Arsenal fan to watch this Chelsea team right now. I hope that he stays as long as possible because this is incredible. But yeah, I think that the Leeds one's going to be a close one. They won't beat Dortmund. Leicester and Everton are going to be close, and Villa's going to be close, and Liverpool is just going to be funny. So I would love, in an ideal world, maybe they tie Leeds, lose to Dortmund, tie Leicester, lose to Everton, and maybe by the time they get to Liverpool, they just try and get Potter through like one more. Even though it's not a big game, watching Liverpool this year, still it's Liverpool. So maybe, seeing how that game goes, and if they lose to Liverpool in April, at the beginning of April, then he's Schmelia.
I don't know how he's still there. I just looked one win in the last 12. I'd be calling for Ten Hag's. I'd be calling for Ten Hag's head.
Yeah.
I was gonna give him to. Have you guys seen those tweets that are like, "You must be ill if you enjoy this downfall of Chelsea"?
Just sitting in a
Yeah.
hospital bed.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant with the oxygen up his nose. Nah, I was gonna say to Everton. I think that's when he goes. I'm with you, man. I think Leeds is gonna. I think they draw Leeds. I think they lose to Dortmund. Leicester. I think if you lose to Everton, who's still a good chance going to be bottom of the table, like what else can you do, bro? Like,
why even give it a chance?
They keep coming. Mm-hmm. They keep doubling down on. He's like, he's not going anywhere. He says in the press conference, it's like, there's no pressure here from the ownership. Like
he finally said this week that there is. I wouldn't say pressure, but he finally understands that he has let the team down. This is the first time that he's openly said that has let the
good job.
Fuck, like say that 2 fucking months ago. Like the further that we get along in this, the more I'm Potter out, and the more it becomes like an irreparable action to, if Boley, as fiery as he is and goes and signs all these guys and spends all this money and does all this stuff, like if he doesn't make a decision on who's the one in charge of all these guys, like that's shocking to me, just as an owner.
Jake, where are you on, like, and this is not to like change it, but like right now, like where do you think you guys finish? Because I'm looking, like you gave the next step coming, but you still have to play Liverpool. You still have to play Brighton, who's not easy. You still have to play United. You have to play Brentford, who's not easy. You got to play Arsenal. You got to play City, and you got to play Newcastle. Like,
Yeah.
I just basically
not a lot of points.
Yeah.
I just basically named the top half. Like,
yeah. But you look at the next, like, say 3 weeks or 4 weeks, like you have Leeds, Leicester, Everton, Villa, and then Liverpool, who I kind of consider fairly even with us at the moment. Like, you can change the complexity of, or like the complexion of the game or like the season within those next 4 or 5 games. Yeah. I think it's solely dependent on those 4 or 5 games, whether we're 10 to 15 or we're 10 to 7. Yeah. Like, I don't think we get into a space where we play European football personally, but would I love to fucking see it? Sure. Like, I think that's obviously the goal and what I would love to have happen. I personally don't see it.
I'd love you guys to play the Conference League as well. That would make me feel really good.
And
Chelsea
take a midweek. He would quit the podcast.
Midweek.
I'd never come back.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they might be playing, bro. You never know.
It's the comeback tour, baby.
If he thought his Thursday shit that he was giving for us playing in the Europa League was bad, wait till they're in the
I want Nick on the podcast, not me.
Until they're in the Conference League.
Chelsea can set a record for the most expensive Conference League team of all time, and it will probably never get broken.
And my answer, guarantee it won't get broken.
They lose to Bodo Glint in the fucking Swedish
and we would
league.
lose so much money. We would be so pissed. Gents, I think he's gone after the Leicester game. I share the same sentiment as you all. I do not think they'll get a result against Leeds, and I don't necessarily think that they'll lose. They could, but I think that they might tie or lose. I'm going double chance there. I don't think they'll beat Dortmund. Dortmund is like on form right now. They won 5 of their last 5. They're looking really good. And Leicester, obviously they can score goals. I when we played them, what was it like last week or whatever? Well,
they were fully healthy then too.
What they said was like Leicester have lost a lot of games, but it's not because they don't score goals. They score goals in just about every single game that they lose. And like, so for Chelsea, a team that doesn't score a lot of goals, if Leicester does score goals, Chelsea doesn't, it just doesn't look good for him. And so I think that they sign an interim manager for the rest of the season. I have no idea who it'll be. It could be Lampard for Vibes FC, but I don't know if they'll have like a full-fledged manager come in.
Fucking Joe Schmo. Who cares? Like,
I heard that Ryan Mason guy from Tottenham was one for one as a manager.
Careful. Watch out. He's going to be a manager one of these days.
It could really use a manager like Tuchel.
They really could. Hypothetically.
Dibs on Will Still from France. If they lose, I want Will Still.
30,000 every game in fines.
That would for sure be the guy that Bull would go after, though. For
that,
sure.
Probably, yeah.
That wraps up this week's episode of the Mecca of Banter podcast. Again, the podcast where we sit around, talk the Prem with a little bit of banter. Fantastic episode this week. Before we sign off, I just want to tell you all I appreciate you, and make sure you check us out on the TikTok, the Instagram, the Twitter. Andy Hoover is causing some stir on our TikTok. He's going after some bodies on there, so make sure that you give that a watch. And until next week,
nobody's safe.
Until next week, cheers, fellas. Well done.
Cheers, boys.
Yeah,
cheers, lads.
Cheers.